The lawyer's voice cut through the mahogany stillness. To my beloved wife, Simone Sterling, I leave the sum of $20. The words did not echo. They settled, heavy, final. The conference room felt too polished, too bright for grief. Afternoon light slid across the long mahogany table, catching the silver pen near Thomas Harrison's hand. The air conditioner hummed softly. Somewhere in the building, a clock ticked with slow, patient indifference. A single sheet of paper moved. Thomas cleared his throat, eyes lowered, and pushed the check forward. It made a faint, papery whisper against the lacquered wood as it traveled the length of the table and stopped in front of Simone. $20. The number sat in neat ink, clean and undeniable. Vanessa Sterling let out a soft laugh. It sparkled, delicate as crystal against a champagne glass. She pressed manicured fingers to her glossed lips as if surprised by her own amusement. $20, she repeated, disbelief dripping from each syllable. My God, Ethan, even in death. Brandon Sterling leaned back in his chair, slow and theatrical. He shook his head with a sigh that sounded almost sympathetic. What exactly are you supposed to do with that, Simone? His eyes flicked to the far end of the table. Buy diapers for 3 kids? The cruelty was casual, polished, practiced. At the head of the table, Victoria Sterling did not laugh. She did not sigh. She sat perfectly straight, spine rigid, hands folded in her lap, dressed in severe black. 73 years old and carved from stone. She did not look at Simone. She had not looked at her in 7 years. Behind Simone, 3 small chairs shifted. Elijah's shoes scraped softly against the floor. Isaiah's breath came in quiet bursts. Gabriel adjusted his collar, the fabric rustling too loud in the silence. They were dressed in navy suits, too big for their narrow shoulders. They had tried so hard to sit still. Isaiah's small hand slipped beneath the table, searching. Simone found it immediately. His skin was warm. Hers was not. Her fingers had been cold for 4 months. Cold since the hospital. Cold since the night she reached for Ethan and found only sheets that held no heat. She squeezed Isaiah's hand gently, praying he would not feel the tremor in hers. Thomas adjusted his glasses. His eyes were tired, the kind of tired that came from knowing what was written on the page before you had to say it out loud. The house, Simone said quietly, her voice thinner than she intended. The savings, his workshop. Thomas hesitated. The hesitation was worse than the answer. The property was repossessed 9 months ago, he said carefully. Your husband had been experiencing financial strain. There are no additional assets listed in the will. That's because he spent everything on her, Victoria said. She still did not look at Simone. My son had a future before you, she continued, voice level and precise. He was set to take over Sterling and Halt. He had stability, a name. Then he met you, and suddenly love was more important than legacy. Simone's chest tightened, but she did not look away. Ethan loved his life, she said. Ethan was confused. Victoria snapped, finally turning. Her eyes were pale and sharp. And you took advantage of that? 3 children at once? How convenient. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Gabriel sniffed. Simone felt it before she heard it, the small shudder in his body. Mama, Isaiah whispered, tugging at her sleeve. His brown eyes, Ethan's eyes, searched her face. Why is she mean to you? The room seemed to tilt. She's just sad, Simone said softly, smoothing his hair. Sometimes people say things they don't mean when they're sad. Victoria's jaw tightened. Brandon checked his watch. So we're clear, he said. $20. 3 kids under 6. No income, no assets. He looked at her with something that almost resembled pity. What's the plan, Simone? Survival? The check sat on the table between them. Thin. Weightless. Final. Simone stared at it for a long moment. 6 years of marriage. 3 boys who called their father their hero. A man who worked 2 jobs and still came home smiling, lifting all 3 children into his arms as if exhaustion did not exist. $20. She reached forward. The paper felt cool under her fingertips. She folded it once. Clean, precise. The crease was sharp. She slipped it into her purse beside the folded funeral program she had not yet found the strength to throw away. I'll figure it out, she said. Victoria leaned forward slightly. Will you? Her voice softened into something almost gentle. Because those boys are Sterlings. They deserve to be raised with their heritage. I am prepared to offer them stability, a proper home, opportunities you cannot provide. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. They have a home, Simone replied. With their mother. For how long? Victoria asked quietly. The clock ticked. Gabriel's breathing quickened. Thomas cleared his throat again, shifting the stack of papers before him. Mrs. Sterling, he said, there is one more item. Every head turned. Brandon frowned. What now? Thomas stared at the final page in the file. The paper was slightly yellowed at the edges, folded separately from the will. I almost missed this, he said. Simone felt something shift. Not hope, not yet. Just something different. Thomas unfolded the smaller sheet carefully. It's a note, he said, addressed to whoever administers the estate. Vanessa's smile faltered. Victoria's fingers tightened. Thomas looked directly at Simone. It says, he read slowly, take her there. She'll understand. Silence. The kind that feels like air being pulled from a room. Take her where? Brandon demanded. Thomas did not answer immediately. He was already flipping back through the documents, scanning for something else. Simone's pulse quickened. Her hands were still cold. But for the first time since the lawyer began speaking, they were not shaking. Thomas did not waste time explaining. He was already typing. The soft clatter of keys cut through the heavy silence as Brandon hovered near the doorway, irritation sharpening his features. Victoria remained seated, but her stillness had changed. It was no longer dismissive. It was watchful. There's a property record, Thomas said quietly, eyes locked on the screen. 40 minutes north of the city, purchased 3 years ago, solely in Ethan Sterling's name. That's impossible, Simone breathed. 3 years ago, they had been arguing about grocery bills. 3 years ago, she had pawned her grandmother's bracelet for rent. 3 years ago, Ethan had come home smelling like sawdust and exhaustion. Thomas turned the laptop toward her. The address was real, the purchase date clear. 3 years. How? She whispered. Thomas glanced at the check she had folded into her purse. Mrs. Sterling, he said, voice lower now. What's the check number? Simone pulled it back out. The paper felt warmer now, almost alive. 2081120. Thomas went very still. That's not random. He met her eyes. August 11th, 2008. The floor seemed to tilt. August 11th. The day Ethan walked into Riverside Community Center covered in sawdust and said, I'm Ethan, and you're beautiful. It's the day we met, she said, barely audible. Thomas nodded slowly. It's a code. Behind them, Brandon's expression had shifted from irritation to something sharper. What code? He demanded. Thomas closed the laptop halfway. Nothing that concerns you. Victoria stood now. If there are undisclosed assets, she said coolly, they belong to the estate, which means they belong to us. Thomas snapped the laptop shut. Not if they were structured properly. Simone felt her pulse in her throat. Take her there, Thomas repeated softly, glancing at the note. She'll understand. Brandon stepped forward. You're not going anywhere. Thomas straightened. She is my client. Unless you'd like me to request a full audit of Sterling and Halt in open probate court? Silence. Brandon's jaw flexed. Victoria studied Simone for a long moment, as if recalculating something. Go, she said finally. Curiosity can be expensive. Mrs. Rivera opened the door before Simone knocked. The older woman took one look at her face and stepped aside immediately. How long you need, Mija? Just a few hours, Simone said. Something came up about Ethan's estate. Mrs. Rivera's brows lifted. Then something passed through her eyes. Recognition. They can stay as long as you need. She crouched to hug the boys, murmuring in Spanish, pressing warm kisses to their hair. As Simone turned to leave, Mrs. Rivera caught her wrist. Ethan asked me to watch over you, she said quietly. A few weeks before. Her voice trailed off. Simone swallowed. When? Before the accident. The word felt wrong. Simone nodded once and stepped back outside. The city thinned as they drove. Concrete gave way to brick to open stretches of trees. The sky widened. Pines crowded the road as the GPS voice announced each turn in calm indifference. Thomas drove a silver sedan that smelled faintly of leather and coffee. The engine hummed steadily beneath them. Did he ever mention investments? Thomas asked. No. Side projects? He worked nonstop, Simone said, but he never hid things. Thomas glanced at her. Sometimes protection looks like secrecy. The road narrowed into gravel. The tires crunched loudly as trees formed a canopy overhead, filtering the afternoon sun into gold streaks across the windshield. Then Simone saw it. Not a cabin. An estate. 2 stories of stone and wood, tall windows catching light, a wraparound porch, acres of pine and wild grass stretching beyond it. The door was painted deep blue, her favorite color. They sat in the car for a moment, neither speaking. Did you know? Thomas asked. She shook her head. The wreath on the door stole her breath. Fresh eucalyptus and lavender. The exact scent from their wedding. Someone's been here, she whispered. Thomas stepped out first, scanning the perimeter instinctively. He crouched near the base of the porch, brushing leaves aside. A loose stone shifted under his hand. He lifted it. A brass key lay beneath, slightly tarnished. Waiting. Simone's fingers trembled. She took it. The metal was warm from the sun. He hid this for me, she said. She climbed the steps slowly. The key slid into the lock. For a second, she hesitated. Then, she turned it. The door opened with a soft wooden sigh. The scent hit her first. Cheddar, varnish, coffee, and faint vanilla cinnamon. She stepped inside. Light flooded an open room lined with wooden furniture, chairs, tables, shelves, all hand-carved, smooth, precise, built with patience. A rocking horse stood in the corner, its carved mane detailed enough to look alive. 3 small chairs surrounded a child-sized table. Names burned into each backrest. Elijah, Isaiah, Gabriel. Her knees weakened. On the walls hung her drawings, college pieces she thought were lost. Framed, centered, treated like gallery art, like she was worth something. Thomas stood silently behind her. He built this, he said. She barely heard him. Her gaze had landed on a desk in the far corner. On it sat a metal lockbox, brass, heavy, carved with delicate flowers. Engraved on top were 3 words, "For my queen." Beneath it, taped to the desk in Ethan's careful handwriting, "They'll try to take this from you. Don't let them." The air shifted. Not hope, not relief, something stronger. Simone stepped forward. Whatever waited inside that box, Ethan had trusted her to use it. Simone stood in front of the lockbox for a long moment before touching it. The brass surface caught the late afternoon light, floral carvings worn smooth at the edges as if Ethan's hands had traced them more than once. The air inside the estate felt warmer than outside, cedar and varnish settling into her lungs, steadying her. "It's locked," Thomas said quietly. Simone nodded. Her gaze drifted to the desk again. An envelope rested beside the box. Her name was written across it in Ethan's careful script. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a small brass key and a folded note. "My queen, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry for the secrets. Open the box, then fight like hell. Forever yours, Dak." Her breath caught. Thomas stepped closer but did not speak. Simone slid the small key into the lock. The click was soft. The lid lifted slowly. Inside were 4 items placed with deliberate precision. A thick manila envelope sealed with red wax. A worn leather journal. A brass key tagged Riverside Trust Box 12. And a black USB drive labeled simply, "The Truth." Simona stared. Thomas exhaled under his breath. He prepared. She reached for the manila envelope first. The wax seal cracked beneath her thumb. Documents slid free, formal, stamped, unmistakably legal. Patent transfer agreements. Royalty statements. Compensation summaries. Numbers filled the pages in neat columns. 6 figures, again and again. Thomas flipped through them quickly, eyes widening. "These are legitimate filings," he said. "Registered. Transferred to private buyers." Simone shook her head slowly. "He never said anything." "Because he couldn't," Thomas replied. If your in-laws knew he had independent revenue streams, they'd have contested everything. Her gaze caught on another document. The Simone Sterling Trust, established 4 years ago. Irrevocable. Protected from creditors and third-party claims. Current value, $1,847,652.38. The paper slipped from her hands. Thomas caught it before it hit the floor. "They can't touch this," he said, scanning the clauses. "It's structured perfectly. Even probate court won't crack it." Simone pressed her hand to her mouth. 4 years. 4 years of late nights, sawdust on his sleeves, arguments about bills, whispered reassurances. He had been building this. For her. For the boys. She reached for the leather journal next. The cover was worn at the corners, pages filled with sketches and notes, design diagrams, measurements, timestamps, dates stretched back years. Ethan's handwriting moved from hurried to precise, from cramped margins to full-page spreads. Every patent matched entries in the journal, concepts refined over time. At the back, tucked into the final pages, was another letter. Simone unfolded it carefully. "My beautiful Simone, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get the chance to explain. My mother tried to pay you to leave. I found the second check she slid under our door. Brandon cornered me last week. He knows about some of the patents. He said I was risking the family legacy. I think he's desperate. If something happens to me, and it looks like an accident, don't believe it. Protect the boys. Trust no one from my side. Simone's knees buckled slightly. Thomas steadied her. "He knew," she whispered. Thomas took the journal gently. His expression hardened as he read further. "There are notes here about threats," he said. "Meetings, dates, times." Simone's heartbeat thudded in her ears. The USB drive sat untouched. The truth. Thomas picked it up carefully. Let's see what he meant. He pulled his laptop from his bag and set it on the desk. The screen flickered to life. The soft hum of the machine filled the room. The drive slid into the port. A folder opened instantly. Audio files. Email backups. Scanned contracts. A video file labeled Hospital March 10. Thomas's face went pale. "What is it?" Simone asked. He clicked one of the audio files first. Static crackled, then cleared. Brandon's voice filled the room. Calm, controlled. "He's not listening. He's jeopardizing everything." Another voice, low and measured Victoria's. "Then, make him listen." A pause. "I've tried. Sometimes difficult decisions must be made for the greater good." The recording ended. The silence afterward felt heavier than the words. Simone's hands trembled. "She approved it," she said. Thomas swallowed. "That's conspiracy." He opened the video file. The timestamp appeared clearly in the corner. March 10th, 3:47 p.m. The hospital room came into view. Ethan lay in bed, bruised but breathing. Machines beeped steadily. The door opened. Brandon stepped inside. Simone's vision blurred. "Don't," she whispered. Thomas pressed pause before the worst unfolded. "We don't need to finish it now," he said gently. Simone shook her head once, forcing herself to stay upright. The estate felt different now, no longer just a sanctuary. A fortress. Ethan had not left her with $20. He had left her ammunition. Thomas closed the laptop slowly. "This changes everything," he said. Simone nodded, but before she could respond, the sound of tires crunching on gravel shattered the quiet. Both of them froze. Through the tall front windows, a black SUV rolled into the driveway, dust rising behind it in thick clouds. The engine cut. The driver's door opened. Brandon stepped out. His expression was not surprised. It was furious. And calculating. He looked directly at the house, directly at the window, directly at Simone. Then he smiled. Brandon did not knock. The front door handle rattled once, testing. Then his fist struck the wood, 3 sharp blows that echoed through the open room. Thomas moved first, stepping between Simone and the window. "Stay back," he said quietly. Outside, Brandon's voice carried through the glass. "Simone, open the door. We need to talk." 2 men stood behind him near the SUV. Broad shoulders, dark suits, still. "This is private property," Thomas called out. "You're trespassing." Brandon smiled faintly, phone already in his hand. Am I? He replied. Because that property was purchased with Sterling and Halt funds, which makes it company property. That's a lie, Thomas shot back. Then we'll let the courts decide. Brandon lifted the phone slightly, as if to punctuate the sentence. Thomas's own phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at the screen. Unknown number. He answered and switched to speaker. Yes? Mr. Harrison. Brandon's voice came through. Smooth now, almost conversational. I'd check your email. Thomas's jaw tightened. He opened the message. His face went pale. What is it? Simone demanded. Emergency restraining order, he said slowly. Filed and granted. That's impossible. Judges move quickly, Brandon said through the phone. For the right families. Simone's pulse spiked. What does it say? She asked. Thomas scrolled. Restraining order against Simone Sterling, he read. Effective immediately. She is barred from residing on or accessing Sterling family properties. That's ridiculous, Thomas snapped. This isn't a Sterling asset. Again, Brandon replied lightly. The courts will decide. A second vibration. Thomas checked another message. Emergency custody hearing, he said. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Simone felt the air thin. On what grounds? Brandon's voice sharpened. Instability, public defamation, financial neglect. That's absurd, Thomas said. Is it? Brandon asked. You posted allegations online. You fled with evidence. You're currently hiding assets that belong to the estate, and you're trespassing. Simone stepped forward despite Thomas's attempt to shield her. You killed him, she said, voice steady. Brandon's smile did not move. Careful. Thomas closed the laptop and unplugged the USB drive in one swift motion. Police are on their way, Brandon added casually. You're in violation as we speak. The front door handle rattled again harder. Come out peacefully, one of the men called. Or we remove you. Thomas turned to Simone. We take everything. Now. The words snapped her into motion. She gathered the journal first, sliding it into her jacket. The manila envelope followed, then the USB drive tucked deep into her purse. Thomas swept the rest into his laptop bag. Back exit, he said. They moved quickly through the open space toward a rear hallway. Behind them, the sound of wood splintering echoed as the front door gave way. They're running, Brandon's voice rang out. Don't let them leave with anything. Simone pushed through the back door into cool forest air. Pine needles crunched beneath her shoes. Branches clawed at her sleeves as she ducked low, clutching the lockbox tight against her chest. Thomas grabbed her hand, pulling her downhill through the trees. Stay low, he said. Keep moving. Her lungs burned. The scent of sap and damp earth filled her mouth. Behind them, heavy footsteps broke through brush. They reached the service road where Thomas had parked earlier. Get in, he said. Simone dove into the passenger seat as Thomas slammed the door shut. The engine roared to life. One of the men burst from the tree line just as the car peeled away, gravel spraying. In the rearview mirror, Brandon stood at the edge of the woods, phone pressed to his ear. He was not shouting, he was calculating. That terrified her more than anger ever could. 20 minutes later, Thomas pulled into a grocery store parking lot and cut the engine. Neither of them spoke at first. Simone's hands were shaking violently now. Are you hurt? Thomas asked. She shook her head. He opened his laptop again, plugging in the USB drive. Files appeared instantly. They can burn the house, he said quietly, but they can't burn this. Simone stared at the screen. They're going to try to take my boys. Thomas looked at her. They already are. Her phone buzzed. Mrs. Rivera. Simone answered immediately. Mija. Mrs. Rivera's voice came fast, tight. A woman came to the house. Said she was from Child Protective Services. Wanted to do a welfare check. Simone's stomach dropped. When? 20 minutes ago. I didn't let her in. Told her to come back with identification and a court order. Simone closed her eyes. Did she say anything else? She knew their names, their ages, their school. Thomas's expression darkened. That's intimidation, he mouthed. They're inside with me, Mrs. Rivera continued. Door's locked. But Simone, what if she comes back? Don't open the door for anyone, Simone said. Not without paperwork. We're coming. She hung up. Thomas was already typing. If they've filed emergency custody, he said, they'll try to remove the boys quickly. They won't, Simone said. They can't. They can, he replied evenly. If a judge believes you're unstable, Simone swallowed. Then we make sure the judge sees the truth before they do. Thomas met her eyes. We go public, he said. With everything? With enough. Simone pulled the folded $20 check from her purse and placed it on the dashboard beside the laptop. A symbol of humiliation. A code. A key. They think I'm broke, she said quietly. They think I'm alone. Thomas closed the laptop. Then let's show them they're wrong. Simone stared out the windshield as dusk began to settle over the parking lot. Brandon had made his move. Now it was her turn. The safe house did not look like one. It was a converted brick firehouse on a quiet side street, its red doors repainted a muted gray. The windows were tall and narrow, the kind that let light in but revealed nothing. Maria opened the door before Thomas knocked. She was in her 50s, dark hair streaked with silver, eyes sharp and kind at the same time. You made it, she said, stepping aside. Inside, the space smelled faintly of detergent and brewed coffee. Clean, neutral, temporary. The boys clung to Simone's coat as she knelt to meet their eyes. Just for tonight, she said softly. Gabriel nodded bravely. Elijah said nothing. Isaiah studied her face too carefully. Maria led them upstairs to a room painted soft blue. 3 small beds stood side by side, nightlights casting quiet stars across the ceiling. Thomas remained downstairs, already spreading documents across a long wooden table. When Simone returned, Maria handed her a mug of tea and closed the kitchen door. How long do we have? Simone asked. Less than 12 hours, Thomas said. The hearing is at 9. He opened his laptop. The USB drive blinked faintly when inserted. We need to control the narrative before they do. Simone stared at the $20 check she had placed beside the keyboard. They're already calling me unstable, she said. They'll say I'm spiraling. Thomas nodded. Then we show receipts. He pulled up a photograph Simone had taken earlier, the check laid flat beside the trust documents and patent agreements. The contrast was violent. $20 on one side, 7 figures on the other. Thomas cropped the image carefully, making sure the check number was visible. 2081120. He tapped the screen. That's your proof this wasn't random. Simone opened her social media account. Her hands trembled as she began typing. My name is Simone Sterling. 4 months ago, my husband died. Today, his family tried to value my 6 years of marriage and 3 children at $20. She attached the image. Then a second one, an excerpt from the trust agreement showing her name and the total value. Then a third, an audio clip. She hesitated. The play button hovered on the screen. Just enough, Thomas said quietly. She clipped a short segment from one of the recordings. Brandon's voice, unmistakable. He's jeopardizing everything. Victoria's reply, calm and cold. Then make him listen. Not the whole file, just enough to disturb. Simone hit post. The sound was small, a soft digital chime, but it felt like a gunshot. Within seconds, notifications began stacking on the screen. Shares. Come on. Private messages. Thomas refreshed the page. It's moving, he said. Simone exhaled slowly. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She stared at it, then answered. Mrs. Sterling. Victoria's voice came through, steady but thinner than usual. You're making a mistake. You tried to take my children, Simone said evenly. You've made serious allegations publicly. They're true. Victoria paused. I'm dying, she said quietly. The words landed like something fragile dropped on tile. Pancreatic cancer, she continued. Stage 4. I have months. I want my grandchildren raised with dignity, with legacy. Simone's grip tightened around the phone. Legacy? She said softly. Ethan's legacy was love. Love doesn't survive death, Victoria replied. Power does. Thomas was watching her carefully. You approved it, Simone said. You told him to stop Ethan. Silence. Then, Victoria spoke again. Be careful what you accuse, Simone. You may win the internet, but the court is different. The line went dead. Thomas exhaled. She's feeling pressure, he said. That's good. Simone stared at the screen. The post had been shared thousands of times in minutes. News outlets were tagging her, journalists requesting comment. Her phone vibrated again. This time it was Thomas's. He answered on speaker. "Mr. Harrison," a woman's voice said crisply. "Christine Whitmore, counsel for the Sterling family." Thomas leaned back in his chair. "Yes? My client is prepared to offer a settlement." Simone's eyes narrowed. "Full custody," Christine continued. "A substantial financial package, provided Mrs. Sterling ceases public allegations and agrees to confidentiality." "How substantial?" Thomas asked. $250,000. Simone laughed once. It wasn't amusement. It was disbelief. "Tell your client," she said, leaning toward the phone, "that I already have what she tried to hide." Christine's tone cooled. "You are escalating this unnecessarily. Custody battles can become ugly. Psychological evaluations, testimony, media scrutiny for those children." Simone's jaw tightened. "You think I'm afraid of ugly? I think you should consider peace." The call ended. Thomas shut the laptop halfway. "They're nervous," he said. Simone nodded slowly. Her phone vibrated again. A message this time. Unknown sender. It contained a single line. "Show the judge the recordings first, not the police. Trust me." Thomas read over her shoulder. "Who is that?" "I don't know." Another notification appeared. Breaking news banner across her screen. "Widow claims corporate conspiracy in husband's death. Evidence surfaces." Simone closed her eyes briefly. The room felt smaller now. Charged. Upstairs, faint footsteps crossed the floor as one of the boys shifted in sleep. Thomas looked at the USB drive. "There's more on here," he said. "We haven't opened everything." Simone inhaled slowly. "Tomorrow," she said. "Tomorrow," he agreed. She picked up the emerald ring she had slipped on earlier and turned it once around her finger. The metal was cool, not cold. Not anymore. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere far off in the city. Inside, the screen continued to glow. The Sterling name was no longer untouchable, and by morning, it would either collapse or crush her. The courthouse steps were already crowded when Thomas's car pulled up. Cameras angled forward like weapons. Microphones lifted. Questions fired before Simone even opened the door. "Mrs. Sterling, are you accusing the Sterling family of murder? Is it true you're hiding assets? Are your children safe?" Thomas stepped out first, trying to block the swarm, but Simone touched his arm lightly. "Let them see me," she said. She stepped into the sunlight. The same black dress she had worn to the funeral fell straight against her frame. The emerald ring caught the light as she shielded her eyes for a moment. Flashbulbs exploded in rapid bursts. She did not lower her head. At the top of the steps, Victoria stood between two attorneys, pale but composed. Brandon was not there. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. Victoria's expression was unreadable. Inside, the courtroom felt smaller than Simone expected. Wood-paneled walls, a faint scent of paper and polish, the low murmur of observers filling the gallery. Judge Kathleen Monroe entered with controlled precision. "Be seated." Her voice was steady, neutral. "Miss Whitmore," she said, turning toward the Sterling table. "Proceed." Christine Whitmore rose smoothly. "Your Honor, we are seeking temporary emergency custody of 3 minor children due to serious concerns regarding their mother's stability, housing, and financial capacity." She approached the bench with a tablet. "Mrs. Sterling has no permanent residence, significant debt, and has publicly posted inflammatory allegations regarding members of this family without presenting them through proper legal channels." Screenshots appeared on the courtroom monitor. Simone's post. The $20 check. The patent excerpts. The audio clip transcript. Judge Monroe's gaze sharpened. "Mrs. Sterling," she said, looking directly at Simone, "did you publish these?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Why?" "Because when I brought concerns to the police, they dismissed me," Simone replied. "And my children were about to be taken from me." Christine stepped forward. "Your Honor, this is precisely our concern. Grief can manifest in instability. Mrs. Sterling's husband died 4 months ago. Since then, she has exhibited erratic behavior, including unfounded murder accusations." Thomas rose. We have documentation supporting those accusations. Submitted to the court? The judge asked. Thomas hesitated. Not yet, Your Honor. Judge Monroe's pen paused mid-note. Then at present these remain allegations. Christine nodded slightly. She presented additional documents. Eviction notice. Bank statements showing overdrafts. Medical bills. Missed pediatric appointments. Simone felt heat crawl up her neck. The pediatrician notes the children appeared tired, Christine added. One had lost weight. When asked about home life, they reported their mother cries frequently. The words struck harder than the financial evidence. Judge Monroe leaned forward. Mrs. Sterling, is that accurate? Simone stood. I am grieving, she said evenly. Yes, I have cried, but my children are fed. They are loved. They are safe. Are they? Christine interjected. Your Honor, Mrs. Sterling is currently staying at an undisclosed location, refusing to comply with a court-ordered restraining directive. Thomas stepped in. That restraining order was filed within hours under questionable grounds. Judge Monroe held up a hand. I will address that separately. Simone felt the room closing in. Your Honor, Thomas said, we have evidence that materially changes the risk assessment. He connected his laptop to the courtroom display. A murmur moved through the gallery. Proceed, Judge Monroe said. The first audio file played. Brandon's voice filled the courtroom speakers. He's jeopardizing everything. Victoria's response followed. Then make him listen. The sound ended. The silence that followed was heavy. Christine rose immediately. Your Honor, context is missing. These recordings could be taken out of sequence or manipulated. We have metadata verifying timestamps, Thomas replied. Verified by whom? The judge asked. Thomas paused. We are in the process of independent authentication. Judge Monroe's expression cooled slightly. Process is not completion. Simone's pulse quickened. Your Honor, she said. There's more. Thomas hesitated only a fraction before opening the hospital video file. The screen flickered to life. A hospital room appeared. The timestamp glowed in the corner. Machines beeped softly. Brandon entered the frame. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Simone's breath caught. The clip played only briefly, Brandon, leaning close to Ethan's bed before Thomas paused it. Judge Monroe removed her glasses slowly. Where did you obtain this video? It was sent anonymously, Thomas answered. Chain of custody? The judge pressed. We cannot yet verify. Judge Monroe closed her notebook. Then I cannot treat this as admissible evidence in a custody hearing. Simone's stomach dropped. It shows he was there, she said, voice trembling but firm. It shows intent. It shows something, the judge replied. But this is family court, not criminal court. If this material is authentic, it belongs with the district attorney. I tried the police, Simone said. They dismissed me. That does not authorize trial by social media. The words landed hard. Christine seized the moment. Your Honor, regardless of these allegations, the immediate concern is the welfare of 3 children currently living in unstable conditions under the care of a grieving mother who has launched a public campaign. Judge Monroe leaned back, considering. The clock on the wall ticked audibly. Simone felt every second. I am issuing a temporary 30-day custody arrangement, Judge Monroe said finally. The air vanished from Simone's lungs. The children will reside with Mrs. Victoria Sterling during this period. Mrs. Sterling will receive supervised visitation and must undergo psychological evaluation. No, Simone whispered. Thomas stood quickly. Your Honor, this places the children in proximity to individuals under serious suspicion. I have not been presented with verified criminal charges, the judge replied sharply. Until that changes, I must prioritize stability. The gavel struck. The sound echoed. Simone remained standing, unable to move. 30 days. Her sons. In that house. Christine gathered her files calmly. Victoria did not look at Simone as she was escorted out. Thomas placed a hand on Simone's shoulder. We'll appeal, he said quietly. But even as he spoke, his phone vibrated. He glanced down. His expression shifted. What? Simone asked faintly. He turned the screen toward her. Breaking news. Brandon Sterling reported missing after courthouse appearance. Simone felt something cold settle in her chest. He's running, she said. And suddenly the custody order felt even more dangerous than before. The drive back to the safe house passed in a blur of traffic lights and unanswered questions. Thomas spoke about emergency motions and appellate judges, but the words slid past Simone without settling. The only sound that stayed with her was the echo of the gavel. 30 days. When they stepped inside, Maria looked at Simone's face and did not ask. "How long?" she asked Thomas quietly. 2 hours, he replied. "Social services will arrive to facilitate the transfer." Maria closed her eyes briefly. Madre de Dios. Upstairs, cartoons played softly from a television. Bright colors flickered against the blue walls. The boys turned when Simone entered. Elijah was the first to notice something was wrong. "Mama!" She knelt in front of them. Her hands were steady now. Too steady. "Remember how I said this was an adventure?" she asked gently. Gabriel nodded. "Well," she continued, "you're going to stay somewhere else for a little while." Isaiah's face tightened. "With the mean grandma?" Simone inhaled carefully. "Yes." Gabriel's eyes filled instantly. "I don't want to go." Elijah stepped closer, trying to be brave. "Did we do something wrong?" The question pierced deeper than anything said in court. "No," Simone said firmly, pulling all three into her arms. "This is not your fault. Not ever." Isaiah pressed his face against her shoulder. "Then don't let them take us." Her throat burned. "I'm trying," she whispered. "I'm still fighting." "But you lost," Elijah said quietly. Simone closed her eyes. "Not yet." Her phone vibrated in her hand. Unknown number. For a second, she almost ignored it. Then she answered. "Hello?" A woman's voice came through. Calm, controlled. "Don't let them take the boys to Victoria's house." Simona froze. "Who is this?" "My name is Vanessa Sterling." Thomas looked up sharply. Simone stepped away from the children and switched to speaker. "Brandon's wife?" Thomas asked. "Yes." Silence stretched between them. "I'm the one who sent the messages," Vanessa continued. "The hospital video. The warnings." Simone's heart pounded. "Why?" she asked. "Because I've been living with a monster for 12 years. Her voice did not break, but something beneath it trembled. "I installed the camera in Ethan's hospital room," she said. "He asked me to, 3 days before he died." Simone's breath caught. He knew Brandon was coming. Thomas exchanged a glance with Simone. "Why come forward now?" he asked. "Because Brandon ran," Vanessa replied. "And desperate men make mistakes." Simone gripped the edge of the kitchen counter. "They're coming in less than 2 hours," she said. The judge signed the order. "I know," Vanessa answered. "I've been monitoring everything. Listen carefully. I'm at the district attorney's office. I have more than you've seen. Bank transfers, emails, voice memos. Enough to issue arrest warrants." "How long?" Thomas asked. 2 hours, maybe less. That's exactly how long we have before social services returns. "Then stall," Vanessa said. "Do whatever you have to. Once Brandon is in custody and Victoria is implicated, the custody order collapses." Simone stared at the wall, mind racing. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. There was a pause. "Because Ethan called me the night before he died," Vanessa said. "He said, 'Take care of Simone. She's stronger than all of us, but she shouldn't have to be,' I promised him." Simone swallowed. "And because," Vanessa continued, her voice tightening, "I have a daughter, and if I don't stop this now, she grows up thinking this is what power looks like." The line went silent. Thomas spoke first. "If this is real, the DA will need to move fast." "They will," Vanessa said. "I've given them everything." 2 hours, Simone repeated. 2 hours, Vanessa confirmed. The call ended. Simone stood motionless for a moment. Thomas ran a hand through his hair. "If she's telling the truth—" "She is," Simone said. "How do you know?" "Because she sounded like someone who's been quiet too long." Upstairs, Gabriel began crying softly. Simone climbed the steps and sat beside the boys on the floor. "Change of plans," she said gently. They looked at her with wary hope. "We're not saying goodbye yet." Elijah's shoulders lifted. "For real?" "For now." Isaiah wiped his eyes. "What are you going to do?" Simone hesitated only a second. "I'm going to tell the truth." Downstairs, Thomas was already drafting a formal submission to the court, flagging potential criminal interference with the custody order. Maria paced near the window. Headlights passed slowly on the street outside. Every engine sound made Simone's heart jump. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Vanessa. 2 images attached. The first, a bank transfer record. $25,000 from Victoria Sterling to Brandon. Memo line, family expenses. The second, $25,000 from Brandon to a name Simone recognized from the USB files. The timestamps were clear. 3 days before Ethan's death. Simone handed the phone to Thomas. "This ties it together," he said quietly. Another message appeared. "Warrant paperwork initiated." Simone exhaled slowly. "We just have to hold the line." A knock sounded at the front door. Sharp, official. Thomas glanced at his watch. Right on time. Simone stood. Her heart pounded, but her voice, when she spoke, was calm. "Let's buy 2 hours." Jessica Chun stood on the threshold with a clipboard held neatly against her chest. Mid-30s, professional, apologetic smile already prepared. "Mrs. Sterling," she said gently, "I'm here to facilitate the transfer." Behind Simone, the house felt smaller than it had an hour ago. Thomas stepped forward. "Miss Chun, I'm Thomas Harrison, counsel for Mrs. Sterling. We're requesting a brief delay." Jessica's expression shifted only slightly. "I understand this is difficult," she said, "but I have a court order." Simone met her eyes. "Please," she said. 5 minutes. Just listen." Jessica hesitated. Her gaze drifted past Simone toward the staircase where faint cartoon music filtered down. 5, she said finally. "No more." They moved into the kitchen. Thomas opened his laptop immediately, hands steady despite the tremor in the room's air. "Before we start," he said, "you need to understand what you're about to see." Jessica nodded once. Thomas clicked. The hospital room appeared on the screen. Timestamp visible in the corner. Machines beeped steadily. Jessica's posture stiffened. Brandon entered the frame. She watched in silence. His voice was low, controlled. "I'm sorry it came to this." The syringe glinted under fluorescent light. Simone forced herself not to look away. Jessica's lips parted slightly. When the struggle began and the monitor's rhythm spiked, Thomas paused the video before the final moments. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. "That's the brother of the woman you're about to give custody to," Thomas said. Jessica swallowed. "Where did this come from?" "Someone who was there," Simone answered. Thomas opened another file. Audio filled the room. Victoria's voice calm, cold. "Sometimes difficult decisions have to be made for the greater good." Jessica's fingers tightened around her clipboard. Thomas switched to the bank transfer images on Simone's phone. $25,000 from Victoria to Brandon, he said. 3 days later, the same amount transferred to a known fixer, time-stamped. Jessica stared at the dates. "This isn't my jurisdiction," she said quietly. "It becomes your jurisdiction," Simone replied, "when the people accused of killing their father are about to become their legal guardians." Jessica looked toward the staircase again. The cartoon music had stopped. The boys were listening. "I can't ignore a signed order," she said. "We're not asking you to ignore it," Thomas replied. "We're asking you to delay execution until the district attorney acts." Jessica checked her watch. 1 hour and 43 minutes, she said. Simone stepped closer. "If we're wrong, you can take them. We won't fight you. But if we're right, and you move now, you're delivering 3 children into the care of someone under active criminal suspicion." Jessica's jaw tightened. "My job is to ensure stability." "Is murder stable?" Simone asked quietly. Silence. Jessica took out her phone. She stepped a few feet away and dialed. "This is Jessica Chun," she said calmly. "I'm at the Sterling custody transfer. I'm requesting a temporary delay, pending review of newly presented evidence that may directly affect custodial safety." She listened for nearly a minute. Her back remained straight. "Yes," she said finally. "I understand the risk." She ended the call and turned back. "You have 2 hours," she said. "If there's no formal action by then, I proceed." Simone exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. "Thank you." Jessica nodded once. "Don't make me regret it." She stepped outside, closing the door behind her. The latch clicked softly. Thomas leaned back against the counter. "That bought us time." Simone's phone vibrated almost immediately. A message from Vanessa. "He's at the DA's office." Brandon turned himself in. Simone stared at the screen. "What?" Thomas asked. She handed him the phone. Another notification appeared. "Breaking news. Brandon Sterling surrenders to authorities." Thomas opened the article. "Full confession pending," he read. "Cooperating with investigators." Simone felt her knees weaken. "He chose survival," she whispered. Her phone buzzed again. "Warrant for Victoria issued. Arrest in progress." Thomas let out a breath he'd been holding. "It's happening." Upstairs, footsteps pounded down the stairs. Elijah appeared first. "Mama?" She knelt, pulling all three boys into her arms. "We're staying," she said. "For real?" Gabriel asked. "For real." Isaiah searched her face. "They're not coming?" "Not today." Behind her, Thomas's phone rang. He answered quickly. "Yes." He listened, nodding. "Yes, we can be there." He hung up. "Emergency hearing," he said. 1 hour. Simone stood slowly. Her hands were no longer shaking. "They're reversing it," Thomas added, "based on the confession and new warrants." Maria wiped at her eyes. "Go," she said. "I'll come with you." Simone slipped the emerald ring into place more securely. The metal felt warmer now. Not armor, anchor. As they stepped outside, sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Not for her. Not this time. Jessica's car remained parked at the curb. She lowered her window. "Something changed?" she asked. Simone nodded. "Yes." Jessica studied her face for a moment. Then she glanced at her own phone, where notifications were beginning to light up the screen. "Go," she said quietly. "I'll file my report." Simone opened the car door for her boys. The sky above the city had shifted from gray to clear blue. 2 hours ago, she had been preparing to lose everything. Now, she was driving toward a courtroom again. But this time, the ground beneath her felt different, solid, and somewhere across the city, a dynasty was beginning to crack. The courtroom felt different the second time, quieter, heavier. Reporters were packed into the back rows, their cameras lowered but ready. The hum of whispered updates rippled through the gallery as Simone entered with Thomas and the boys. Maria guided the children to a bench near the wall. Victoria was not seated at the Sterling table. Her chair remained empty. Judge Monroe entered swiftly, her expression grave. "Be seated." The sound of bodies settling filled the room. "Before we proceed," she began, "I have received updated filings from the district attorney's office." Paper shifted as she reviewed the documents. Mr. Brandon Sterling surrendered himself to authorities earlier today and has provided a recorded confession regarding the death of Ethan Sterling. A murmur broke through the gallery despite the bailiff's sharp look. Simone's fingers tightened around Elijah's hand. Judge Monroe continued. "Additionally, an arrest warrant has been issued for Mrs. Victoria Sterling on charges including conspiracy to commit murder." Christine Whitmore stood slowly. "Your Honor, my client has not been convicted of anything." "She has been arrested," the judge replied evenly, "and this court cannot ignore the implications." Thomas remained still, allowing the silence to stretch. Judge Monroe turned her attention to Simone. "Mrs. Sterling, the temporary custody order issued earlier today was based on incomplete information." Simone held her gaze. "I understand. I am vacating that order effective immediately." The words landed softly, but they carried weight. "Full custody is restored to Mrs. Simone Sterling, pending further review." The gavel struck once. This time it did not echo like a loss. It sounded like release. Simone exhaled slowly. Behind her, Gabriel began to cry not from fear, but from something looser, lighter. Judge Monroe removed her glasses. "I owe this court an acknowledgement," she said. "Assumptions were made regarding grief and stability. That was an error." Christine Whitmore gathered her files quickly. "Your Honor, this will be appealed." "You are welcome to pursue whatever legal avenues remain available," the judge replied. "However, given the criminal proceedings now underway, this matter will be referred to the State Attorney General for review of the restraining order's expedited approval." The implication hung in the air. Overreach, influence, pressure. Simone felt something shift inside her. Not triumph. Not vengeance. Balance. Outside the courthouse, the scene had transformed into controlled chaos. News vans lined the curb, microphones extended forward. The air buzzed with live feeds and breaking headlines. Footage of Brandon being escorted into a police station looped across nearby screens. A second clip showed Victoria leaving her estate in handcuffs, face pale, shoulders diminished beneath the weight of cameras. Simone watched only briefly. She did not feel satisfaction, only stillness. A reporter called out, "Mrs. Sterling, do you feel vindicated?" She paused at the top of the courthouse steps. The boys stood close on either side of her. Thomas remained a quiet presence just behind. She looked directly at the camera. "My husband tried to protect us," she said calmly. "He built something stronger than fear." The emerald ring caught the sunlight as she shifted her hand. "He believed love was worth fighting for, so I fought." Flashbulbs erupted. "Do you have a message for the Sterling family?" Simone considered the question for half a breath. "I hope they finally understand what legacy means." She turned and descended the steps. The crowd parted slightly as she passed. In the car, the boys climbed into the back seat, still holding on to each other. Elijah leaned forward. "Are we really staying with you?" "Yes," she said. "For always?" She reached back and squeezed his hand. "For always." Thomas started the engine. His phone vibrated again. He glanced down. "The DA is filing formal charges within the hour," he said quietly. "They're moving fast." Simone nodded. "Good." As they drove away, sirens echoed faintly in the distance, heading toward the part of the city where power once felt untouchable. Simone rested her head briefly against the seat. Her hands were warm, not because the fight was over, but because she had not let it be taken from her. Outside, the skyline stretched wide and indifferent. Inside the car, three small voices began arguing about who got to pick the music. Life, ordinary and loud, reclaimed the space that fear had occupied. Behind them, a name that once carried weight now carried charges. And ahead, for the first time in months, the road did not feel like something she was being pushed down. It felt like something she was choosing. The Sterling dynasty had not collapsed in flames. It had fractured under its own pressure, and Simone had simply refused to be buried beneath it. 6 months later, autumn settled gently over the estate. The trees surrounding the property had turned gold and rust, leaves drifting lazily across the gravel path. The air carried the scent of pine and distant wood smoke. The house no longer felt like a secret waiting to be discovered. It felt lived in, home. Behind the main house, the workshop doors stood open. Sunlight streamed through wide windows that had once been only sketches in a journal. Now they were real, installed and polished, throwing bright rectangles of light across the wooden floor. Inside, the sound of sanding and quiet laughter filled the space. 8 children worked at tables sized perfectly for small hands. Wood shavings curled across the floor like pale ribbons. The scent of cedar mixed with acrylic paint and something sweeter cookies cooling somewhere nearby. Simone moved between the tables, sleeves rolled to her elbows. "Check the angle," she said gently, guiding Aisha's hand as the girl adjusted the roof of a small birdhouse. "You want the rain to slide off, not settle." Aisha grinned when the piece fit cleanly. Gabriel stood at the far end of the room, carefully brushing blue paint across a wooden truck. A streak of color marked his cheek. Isaiah concentrated over a smooth plank, tongue peeking out slightly as he sanded the edges. Elijah worked more quietly than the others, carving something small and deliberate. Simone paused beside him. "What are you making?" He held it up. A robin with wings lifted mid-flight, carved with surprising detail. "For Daddy's grave," he said, "so he has a new one for fall." Her throat tightened, but she smiled. He'd love that. The Ethan Sterling Memorial Workshop sign hung near the door, simple and unpretentious. The program ran twice a week, funded quietly through the trust that had once been hidden in a lockbox. No press releases, no ribbon cuttings, just tools, patience, and children learning how to build something from nothing. Thomas arrived carrying paper bags from the deli down the road. The boys ran to him immediately. "Lunch!" Gabriel shouted. Thomas laughed, setting the bags on the long wooden table. He had become a steady presence over the past months. Not loud, not intrusive, just there helping file paperwork, reviewing contracts, occasionally sanding wood beside the kids when they asked. Simone caught his eye briefly. "How's the trial?" she asked quietly. He exhaled. "Victoria's lawyers are pushing for a plea deal. Her health is declining." Simone nodded once. "And Brandon?" "Still cooperating. It won't erase what he did." She looked out toward the yard where the children were chasing one another across the grass. "Nothing will." They ate lunch outside on the porch steps. The sunlight felt softer now, less harsh than the day she first stood there uncertain of what the house meant. After the children left that afternoon, the workshop grew quiet. Simone remained inside alone. The tools were hung neatly along the wall. Wood dust floated in the fading light like suspended memory. On a shelf near the window sat a framed photograph of Ethan. Beside it rested the emerald ring box, open but empty. The ring circled her finger now, not as armor, but as a reminder. She picked up a small piece of wood and a thin coil of gold wire. Carefully, patiently, she carved. The motion was rhythmic, intentional. When she finished, she held the piece in her palm, a wooden heart, split cleanly down the center, the crack bound together with delicate gold threading. Broken, mended, stronger at the fracture. She placed it on the shelf beside the photograph. Outside, 3 robins landed on the fence. They had come often lately. Isaiah noticed them first one morning weeks ago and insisted they were visiting on purpose. Elijah named them. Gabriel tried to feed them crumbs. Simone watched them now through the window. Perhaps it was coincidence. Perhaps it was hope. Either way, she did not push it away. Footsteps approached behind her. The boys ran into the workshop, breathless from the yard. "Mama," Gabriel said. "Look." He pointed toward the fence. 3 birds perched in a line against the setting sun. Simone knelt and pulled her sons close. "See?" Elijah whispered. "He checks on us." Simone felt warmth spread through her chest, not the sharp burn of grief. Something steadier. "I think," she said softly, "he'd be proud of you." Isaiah leaned against her shoulder. "Are you still sad?" She considered the question. "Yes," she answered honestly. "But the sad doesn't control everything anymore." Elijah looked up at her. "You're doing good, Mama." The simplicity of it struck deeper than any courtroom ruling ever had. "Thank you," she said. That night, after the boys were asleep, Simone stepped outside onto the porch. The sky stretched wide and dark, stars scattered above the treetops. The air was cool against her skin. She closed her eyes briefly. "We're still here," she whispered into the quiet. The estate no longer felt like a fortress. It felt like a foundation, not built from secrecy or fear, but from intention, from choice, from love that refused to disappear. Inside, the house was warm. Lights glowed softly in the windows. 3 small bedrooms down the hall. A workshop filled with plans for tomorrow. Simone slipped her hand over the emerald ring once more, not to check if it was there, but because she believed it now, she was enough. And love, stubborn and unyielding, had outlasted power. The wind moved gently through the trees. The birds remained on the fence a moment longer. Then they lifted together into the darkening sky. Love outlived the money,